The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Gaddotti, and I'm going to be your Customer Success Manager and kind of moderator of the New Forma Project Center Deconstructing Project Risk file sharing webinar today. A few things before we get started. I will be having the questions pane and GoToWebinar open the entire time. So if any questions come up, feel free to reach out using the questions area on the kind of bottom half of the GoToWebinar screen. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. I will be looking at them periodically. We can take some time at the end to go over any, and if I feel any are pertinent to what we're talking about today, I'll answer them during the conversation. I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your day and joining me to talk about file sharing today. Today's agenda is a little bit about New Forma, where we feel we fit into the AECO space and why we exist. We're going to talk about why project information management is so important, the value of New Forma. We're going to jump into a demonstration. I'll be answering questions throughout, and then at the end, let's continue the conversation. If these answers or if this conversation is helpful, feel free to reach out, and we can really custom or tailor a conversation directly to what your specific company needs. Now, the reason why New Forma exists is because we feel like the AEC industry is very unique. One company has to work alongside many others, and the success of a project really hinges on how well these different companies can collaborate together, communicate, share information, and make sure everyone's on the same page. The hard part is that there's a lot of data out there. And if we look over kind of back in time at 2004, the typical $100 million project was about 100 gigabytes in size. When we look at the last time we pulled this information, which was 2016, it's grown out of control. The 6.5 terabytes per kind of typical $100 million project. And the problem when you have all that data is that you try and figure out where to store it all. And a lot of the time information becomes siloed. So you can go and look at something, you can say, oh, well, where am I looking for this document? Where does this document live? And it can live in 5, 6, maybe 7 different places. My Outlook, your Outlook, the J drive, the P drive, the R drive. It could be in SharePoint, it could be in Revit, it could be in Navisworks, it could be in Dropbox, it can be in OneDrive. And it really becomes a hindrance on you and the rest of your team if you need to go explore and try and find out where this information lives. And so that's why project information management exists, right? You guys are swimming in a sea of information, and really it's only useful, I'll say, it's only good if you can find, or if you can recall that information, find it, prove that those discussions took place, prove that you sent the documents where they needed to go, or sent to an individual, or that they downloaded it. Unfortunately, we live in a pretty litigious world, and we work in a pretty litigious business. So having this proof is very important. So what we want project information management to be, or New Forma in general, is kind of a way for you guys to get your head above water, get away from the tsunami of information and get away from the risk that surrounds that. And that's really what New Forma's mission is. Our goal is to connect project information silos to eliminate waste, promote best practices, maximize profitability, and enhance your reputation. Traditionally, a lot of companies purchase multiple different pieces of software. They purchase project management software to take care of things like RFIs, submittals, field reports, site visits, etc. And they take information management, right? How do I handle all the documents? How do I search through these documents? How do I unbury myself from the struggles associated with email? And how do I share these documents with the rest of the project team, either internal or external? And that is really what New Forma is built to be. We want to take both of these different pieces of products and we want to unite them together. So not only does New Forma take care of things like RFIs, transmittals, submittals, things like that, but we're also taking care of the information management side. How do we get our head above email? How do we share documents really well? So we like to say that we're a single pane of glass to your information. And that really gets to what this webinar series is all about. We're on the file sharing, the second part of our webinar series. Last month, we went over communication, so getting files into the system, getting emails into the system, being able to find them using our new form of search capabilities. And if you had any questions or if you wanted to communicate about our communications module, we'd love to meet with you. We'd love to have those communications, and we'd love to maybe send you the webinar that happened last month. Today's webinar is going to be all about file sharing, right? How do we take the information that we have in Newforma and share it externally? We're also going to jump into productivity, contract management, and our BIM integration with Revit and with Navisworks Manage during later webinar series. So like I said, today's focus is file sharing. We're going to jump into information exchange, talk about shared folders, talk about tracking and how that works in Newforma, and then at the end we're going to talk about transmittals and how can Newforma kind of alleviate that task work associated with transmittals. Before we jump into that, I do like to bring up something that I feel very strongly about, and it's the ingestion model versus the reference systems model. Now, when we talk about Newforma, we are what we call a reference system. All of your data still lives exactly where it lives today. We're making connections to it. If you guys decide at any point in time to walk away from Newforma, you can do so freely. You'll just kind of go back to the way that you're doing things right now. In an ingestion system, it's a little bit different. Your files and your folders are moved out of a J drive or a P drive or wherever you have them stored now, and they're moved into a database. Now, that database really restricts what you're able to do and how you're able to handle those documents because now they're only associated with that one system. And if you ever decide to walk away from that system, it becomes very difficult for you guys to do so. You have to grab information out of that system, pull it out, and really rebuild the environment that you had before you implemented that system. And that's why Newforma built the environment we did, because we wanted you guys to utilize Newforma because you liked the way it worked and it helped you out on a day-to-day basis. And we wanted to get away from the kind of holding your data hostage. If you have any questions on this, I'd love to talk to you about it as well. So let's jump into a demonstration. I'll get out of my PowerPoint here and I'll jump into Newforma. So in Newforma, what I'm going to do is just kind of an overview of how it works and how we organize the different pieces of information. And then I'll jump into how Newforma can help you share files. So the thought again with Newforma is that files live all over the place. What we want to do is kind of wrangle those together and keep them in one spot and allow you to find them very quickly and very easily. All the information in Newforma is based off of project-specific kind of containers. We call them projects in Newforma. So if you look at the screen that I have right here, I have my projects, which is a list of projects that I'm associated with. I like to think of them as favorites, so I can jump into a project that I care about very quickly and very easily. But we also have all projects. So if I need to go back in time, I need to look at archived information. I need to look at maybe an opportunity. Maybe I need to look at active projects that I'm not associated with, that I haven't necessarily flagged as my favorites. All of those are in the all projects header, and I can take this list and I can restrict it down by utilizing my filtering technology inside of Newforma. So I have the ability to filter by name, by project number, by project manager, by principal in charge, by status, so many different categories that I can filter by. So instead of scrolling through all 77 projects, I can come in here and I can type in the California Drive project. I can say I want to see only the active California Drive projects. And from 77 projects, now I'm down to one. I can easily open up that project. If I open up a project, I'll go to my Alpen Grove Science Center. It brings me to my project home screen. And on the project home screen are all the different what we call activity centers that are associated with Newforma. How do we take information and allow you to find it very, very quickly? One is through our search capability that I covered on our last webinar. The other is by activity centers. So if I'm looking for a file, I can jump into the Project Files Activity Center. If I'm looking for a submittal or an RFI, we have activity centers directed to that. If I'm looking for a document, a record document, I have document control. What we're going to be talking about today is info exchange and how we can allow you to send and receive files from external collaborators very easily. I can go into project files, and there are a few different ways to share information. The first one we're going to talk about is I have, let's say, 5 or 6 different files. I want to send them out really quickly. What I can do is I can navigate through project files and I can find those files. So I'll go into my CAD folder, I'll go into my BG files, and I'll select some files that I want to transfer out. I can hit info exchange, and now I have my first choice. I can just transfer them out really, really quickly, right? Just package them up, send them to an individual, be done with it. Or I can take this opportunity to not only transfer these out, but also at the same time log a transmittal automatically. If I do that, it's going to bring me to a form that looks an awful lot like an email. We wanted this environment to be very easy for your employees to use so that they don't have to necessarily learn how to use a new piece of technology. So they can come in here and just start typing in a name. I'm going to send this out to Peter, right? I'm going to put my subject as some great webinar files, put in my wonderful remarks, and you can see that our associated files are already in this form, and our description of contents has already been created. Now I can come in here and I can edit the description of contents if I want to change it from the default setting of the title of that file. But after I have all this information in here, I can just create and transfer. What we're going to do is we're going to come up with some options. And this is really where Nuforma differentiates itself from a lot of those other file transfer methods. Not only is it one application, so I don't need to store files here, transfer files here, look for files here. It's all within one application. But also at the same time, we can make some settings in the background to more adhere to what you're looking to do. Now, these settings can be saved to a default state, so you don't have to feel like you have to reinvent the wheel every single time you come in here. But they're really simple questions like, who do I want to send this to? Only Peter? He's the only one that I specified in the to area of this form, right? So by default, it's only going to send it to Peter. But what if Peter's out of the office? Does it make sense to not only send it to Peter, but also to his fellow company members? So I can send it to Peter, I can send it to Jim, John, Bob, everyone else associated with this company on this project. I can also open the floodgates entirely and say all of the project team members, everyone associated with this team ends up getting this transfer as well. Do I want to allow them to download partial contents? If I'm sending 4 files like I am right now, am I okay with them going in there and downloading 1 or 2 of them? Or is it an all or nothing package, right? How do I stop someone from going in there and just downloading what they think would be necessary to have? How long do I want it to sit on Info Exchange, right? By default, things like Dropbox, FTP sites, OneDrive, you put something out there, it stays there forever. And people love to just put stuff on FTP sites, put stuff on OneDrive because it's really easy. What they don't like to do is go back in 1-2 weeks and remove that information. And this becomes really important because if you have old files out there, right, and no one goes back in there and deletes it, people can be grabbing the wrong versions of those files, potentially building off of the wrong versions, and that becomes a very large headache. How sensitive is this information? Do I want them to have to log in order to download this? And do I want notifications and reminders? I'm sending this out to Peter, so do I want a notification when Peter comes in here and downloads these files? Or do I want a reminder saying, hey, it's about 2 days before these are supposed to be removed, and Peter still hasn't downloaded them, right? You might want to give Peter a call. We're tracking everything through Nuforma Info Exchange. And like I said, these options can be set to a default state so you don't have to come in here and change them every single time you send a file out. But these options are important because they allow you to kind of take care of what you need to take care of and change the settings in order to meet your needs. So what I'll do is I'll hit OK, and it's going to do a bunch of stuff in the background. It's going to package all these up, transfer them over to Info Exchange. It's going to automatically create a transmittal, associate this transmittal with this transfer, and also save it into our transmittal activity center where we house all the different transmittals that you have over the course of the project. We're going to send Peter and his fellow company members an email saying, hey, you have new files out there. Give them a link to take them directly into Info Exchange. We're also going to log everything that we just did in our Info Exchange Activity Center. So I can go in there and I can take a look at my outgoing transfers as well as incoming transfers. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but Info Exchange also allows external individuals to send you files as well. I'll look at my outgoing transfers, right? Here's my great webinar files that we just sent over. I can see when they were created, when the upload started, and when the upload completed. I can see every single step. From Peter's end, he gets an email with a link to take him directly to those files, or he can log in using something called Info Exchange. And I'll show you what Info Exchange looks like right now. It's a web-based collaboration platform that's a project website. So I can come in here, I can sign in, and I can take a look at all of the projects that Peter has access to. So as Peter, because I'm only on 3 projects at your firm, I can only see 3 projects. If I jump into one, it takes me to the Information Exchange homepage. And this has all the different Info Exchange activity centers that they can use to grab information, send information your way. From the home screen, what they can do is they can send files your way, start an RFI or submittal process. They can view the submittals that are associated with them, view RFIs, view any file transfers as well. So we just sent Peter a file. I can log in as Peter, take a look at file transfers, and here are my great webinar files right here. I can come in here and I can download all contents. Because we restricted Peter's ability to download individual contents, he only has the ability to download all. So I'll hit download all, I'll hit save, and it's done. The nice thing about using Info Exchange is not only now do I get an email saying, hey, Peter downloaded these files, these are the files that he downloaded, but we're also tracking this inside of Nuforma as well. So if I come back and I kind of refresh the screen, it's going to show me that Peter downloaded these files at 2:17 p.m. on the 18th of July. So when Peter ends up calling you and saying, hey, I need more time on this, I never got the files you sent over, can you resend those to me? You can say, hey, well, Peter, I have record of you having downloaded them on the 18th of July at 2:17 p.m. So you downloaded them, you've had them for a while now. I do need you to, adhere to the due date of whatever he's working on and get it to me in the next 2 days or something like that. Right? Having the information is really, really important, especially when it comes to transferring files and making sure everyone has the same kind of right copy of those files. We can also use Info Exchange, if I go back home, to share documents through document control. So if I jump into document control, this is where we keep all of our record documents, all of the sheets, the sheet index associated with the project, and all of the revisions actually are being stored in document control. And document control is really nice because we can automate the transfer of these documents to Info Exchange. So if Peter goes back into Info Exchange and he goes back to his project home, not only does he have all of these kind of what I'll call home screen activity centers, but he can also come up here to view, and he can view all of the different activity centers that you decide to give permission to. So he can come in here and he can take a look at document control, and instead of you guys having to package all documents out and send them over to Peter as a package, right? Peter can come in here, be a little bit proactive if he wanted to, and always have access to the latest copies, the latest revisions of record documents, no matter where he is or what time it is, right? You don't have to worry about doing all of that. Info Exchange will do that automatically for you. So let's take a look at what we just looked at. So with Info Exchange, you can share your data with external team members, provide all of your data on a project-specific website. It also allows you to enhance the CA workflow because, as you saw, he can not only get into files that you've sent him, but any tasks or RFI or submittals that you've sent externally as well. So if I'm an engineer or a consultant for some reason, and you send me a submittal to review, what I can do is I can log into your Info Exchange, and not only can I see the information that I need, see the data, see the spec sheet, but I can also use markup tools inside of Info Exchange in order to mark up that document and send it back directly from the project website. We'll jump into that in a little bit more detail during our construction administration or construction management webinar. And Newforma Info Exchange also works for your internal team. So if for some reason they're not inside the project or they're not in the office, right, they can still access a lot of information directly through Info Exchange using that project website. Let me go back in here and we'll jump into shared folders. So what I did there is I grabbed a specific set, right, of information and I transferred it over. Newforma also gives you the ability to integrate directly with project files and share folders out. So if I go into Newforma Project Center project files, you can see that there are some blue folders in here. What those blue folders recognize is that these are shared folders. Any content within this folder is being shared with a subset of individuals. Now you can control who you decide to share folders with and permissions associated with those very easily just by coming in here, hitting shared folder, and allowing you to add, remove recipients, resend the notifications, change access level, or just create a shared folder if there already wasn't one. But we're also logging everything through shared folders as well. So I can take a look at the transfer history. I can take a look at the change log, who performed those changes, who these shared folders are associated with or assigned to, and the transferred files associated with those. When were these files transferred? At what date and timestamp? Right? I uploaded this information into the project. The latest revision was this date and time and this size of a file. And this was the name of the file. Makes it really easy if you need to share a lot of information with a lot of people, and it's going to be updating pretty rapidly or pretty consistently. Just put some stuff in a shared folder and allow individuals to connect to it. People can also log in to Info Exchange. So if I go back to view, right, I have all of my different activity centers, one of them being shared folders. So from Peter's perspective, he can come in here and he can take a look at all the different shared folders. And not only can he view the information in here, but he can also upload information to this as well. So shared folders can be very collaborative, right? Not only am I sharing information to Peter through shared folders, but Peter can also drag and drop into a folder and share information with me and directly back into Newforma. All right, doesn't look like any questions yet. If questions do come up, feel free to type them in the questions pane in the in the GoToWebinar bar over on the right-hand side of your screen. When I share a folder, it also automatically includes subfolders as well. So I have the ability to share a root folder and include all subfolders, or I have the ability to just share subfolders and not necessarily include all the folders within that root. So to look back, shared folders. Allows you to transfer all documents included in a selected folder. It automatically syncs with information exchange, not only things that you're sending out, but things that they're sending to you. It allows you to share a lot of information with specific individuals, and it automatically includes subfolders. We're also tracking and logging every single piece of information that goes into a shared folder and who it's shared with. So you always have a log of all the correspondence or all the communication that happens with it. Speaking of tracking, everything is tracked through Newforma Info Exchange. We have date and timestamps for each step. Like when I sent that group of items over to Peter, he downloaded it. I not only got an email notification, but it also went into Newforma Information Exchange, right? Named user downloads are recorded. And actually, if they do a partial download as well, so if I send 4 files and they only download 2 of them, it'll call it out as a partial download and it'll tell me exactly which files of the 4 they sent out. Records are kept forever. We're never going to remove any of the instances of downloads or what you've downloaded. We can also show you, depending on what settings you have in the background, what these records look like when they were transferred. So if you're transferring a document out, I can look at exactly what it looked like when it was sent out, not only what the latest revision or what the latest version looks like. And it also allows you to combat the finger pointing. That's really what we're trying to do at the end of the day. People come in and say, hey, I never got that. People come in and say, hey, I need more time. This was wrong. You can go in there and you can prove that what you're doing is correct. Try and stop the finger pointing, right? Something else that we touched on was transmittals. So if I go back into my environment, we have an environment, or I should say an activity center, that's dedicated to transmittals. So if I jump in here, I can take a look at every single transmittal that's ever happened on the project. Now, this isn't only I'm sharing a file with someone externally, but this is also RFI or submittal transmittals. This is any transmittal associated with any activity center that we have. I can come in, I can take a look at all the pending incoming transmittals, all received, all sent. So if I come back in here, I can take a look at the same great webinar files. Like I said, we automatically made a transmittal and automatically associate that transmittal with our transmittals activity center. Not only does it have the remarks, the description of contents, but it also has the associated files, and the transmittal is actually included in there as well. So I can come in here and I can take a look at all of the different files that I sent over, all the different plans or different PDFs, DWG, but as well as the transmittal. I can take a look at related items as well, and this will give me links directly into the transfer or the record copy of the files that we kept or the compressed zip folder that was actually sent out to external individuals. We're relating all these items together so that when you go to look for something, not only do we give you activity centers to look in, not only do we give you our search capabilities to utilize, but we also relate everything to everything else. So you can kind of follow that breadcrumb trail to find exactly what you were looking for. I also want to specify that there is no file transfer limit on what we're sending out, right? I could have a 6-7 gigabyte file and I can send that out using Info Exchange without any issues at all. And it'll be pretty quick because we're not pushing it up to the internet. It's going to an Info Exchange server that sits locally to your environment. So if we start talking about transmittals, these are really important because this is what kind of dictates or what proves that you're sending this information out. And we're automatically creating it. A lot of people are still using kind of Word files or Excel files in order to create transmittals. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just takes a little bit of time. And if you guys are trying to kind of cut down on the time that you're spending, instead of just not doing transmittals, let's find a program that automatically creates them for you. You can edit the transmittal form to fit your specific needs. So all of our different transmittal forms, submittal, RFI transmittals, file transfer transmittals, all are a unique form that you guys can go in there and edit. It's just a Word template, so you can get in there and edit it to whatever you want. As long as they're tracking the information, you can put it in there. And the Transmittal Activity Center keeps everything organized. I can search through that. I can find it very quickly and very easily in multiple different places inside of Nuforma. And so that's the Nuforma impact, right? We have a kind of a series of webinars. This is the second one we've done. The first one, again, was communications. But our end goal for Nuforma is to increase productivity gains, increase project efficiency, better project collaboration by being able to share information out automatically like we do in shared folders and document control. Or if you need to just package something up, let's keep it within the same application. You guys shouldn't need 2, 3, 4 applications just to find your files and send it out and log things. For the end goal to mitigate your risk, right? There's a lot of risk associated with the construction industry, a lot of finger pointing. I like to say whoever has the most information kind of rules the world, because if you can go into a system and find something in 2 seconds while someone else is still looking through their kind of email or their sent mail or calling Google to try and find out if something was transferred in a Google Drive, makes your life a lot easier and it makes your reputation increase as well. So if this was helpful, if this conversation is something you'd like to expand on, or if you'd like to learn a little bit more about our communications area, right? Files, file search, email management, things like that, reach out. We're absolutely here to help you. I'd love to meet with each and every one of you to talk about your specific needs. And if you'd like to, go ahead and reach out to projectcenter@nuforma.com or give us a call. We have a USA and Canada number, we have a UK number, and we also have an Australia and New Zealand number for you to reach out to depending on your location in the world. If there aren't any questions, and I'm not seeing any, I will say this is maybe a last chance to get questions in. I'd love to take anything that you guys have, but I appreciate your time today. I'm going to stay on the line for another minute or two, see if any questions pop through, but thank you all for your time. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit more about Newforma Project Center, and please reach out if we can be of any help. All right, thank you everyone for calling. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here. Like I said, if any questions come up or if you'd like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to Project Center at newforma.com. Thank you, everyone.